adjacent over hypotenuse, and tan will be opposite over adjacent. These are the trigonometric ratios of trigonometric functions. And we have the reciprocals اللي هو cosec theta 1 over sine theta. هتبقى hypotenuse over opposite. And sec theta equals 1 over cosine theta. And cotan theta will be 1 over tan theta, which is adjacent over opposite. Okay? And we already saw this, and we know the 6 trigonometric functions of this angle. تمام؟ طيب. ادي برضو الopposite وادي الadjacent according to different angles. يعني if the position of this angle like that one, this is opposite and this adjacent. If the angle is here, then the opposite is this side and the adjacent is this side. Okay? The hypotenuse is the longest side. اللي عارفينه. ادي the ratio that I have wrote now. Sine and cosec, cosine and sec, tan and cotan. These angles and the reciprocals. Okay? So, toi. Sine 1 over cosec, cosine equal 1 over sec, tan equal 1 over cotan, and the others reciprocals. Okay, add the ratio. Using calculator and to calculate some ratios. كل ده خدناه السنة اللي فاتت. Why sine power of -1? If you have a triangle like this one, and you have this is C and B and A, and this side is 17, and this side is 12, and you need the measure of this angle, then tan C, because you have the relation between opposite and adjacent, according to this angle, tan C equals opposite over adjacent. Tan C equals 17 over 12. And you need to find the measure itself. If a measure of angle C equal shift tan, which is tan power of -1, and the inverse of this ratio, which is 17 over 12. And by using calculator, you can find it. Can you calculate it, please? If a measure of angle C equals shift tan. Shift tan means tan power of -1, which is the inverse of this one. So if this tan equals 17 over 12 as a ratio, and you need to find the measure of the angle, find the inverse of tan by using the calculator is shift tan. Okay يا جماعة؟ طيب اوكي. ماشي. This is the explanation of what I solved now. These 6 trigonometric ratios. Okay. You mean this is alpha? I think tan alpha 3 over 4. This angle is alpha, and this is theta. Okay, and this some calculation to find the sine and cosine. And also we studied this yesterday, and I was explained the 4 quadrants. The first one is sine or cosine, the same. Cosine 90 minus theta equals sine theta, and sine 90 minus theta equals cosine theta, and cotan 90 minus theta equals tan theta, And then the first quadrant is the relation between the angle and its complementary. Cosine means complementary of sine. Cotan means complementary of tan. Cosec means complementary of sec. Then cosine 90 minus theta is the complementary of angle theta, which is sine theta. Okay. In the second quadrant, and we solved some exercise on this properties yesterday, يعني قلنا sine 180 minus theta equals sine theta, and cosine 180 minus theta equals negative cosine theta, because in the first quadrant all of them are positive. In the second, only sine and the third is reciprocal. So cosine 180 minus theta equals negative cosine theta, and tan 180 minus theta equals a negative tan theta. Okay. In the third quadrant, sine, the angle lies in the third quadrant, is called 180 plus theta equals negative sine theta, because the sine in the third quadrant is negative, and cosine 180 plus theta equals negative cosine theta, and tan 180 plus theta equals tan theta, because tan in the third quadrant is also positive. Okay. Here sine 360 minus theta or sine negative theta equal negative sine theta. Cosine 360 minus theta equals cosine theta, because the cosine in the fourth quadrant is positive, and tan 360 minus theta equals negative tan theta. I'm going to solve some questions on these properties now. Okay. Finding an angle from a triangle. This is an explanation to find the angle. You can use tan C, cosine C, cosine C equals 6 over 14, then 3 over 7. And to find measure of angle C, find cosine power of -1 with shift cosine, and cosine power of -1 of 3 over 7 to find the angle itself. Okay. Type the same. Okay. The same example. You have this file in SMS. And tan also equals opposite or adjacent, and you can find the angle also. Okay. And the same idea, but using the sign. So you can find the measure of angle of the side by using the trigonometric ratios, or this for the right angle triangle. But for the oblique triangle, you can use the sine rule and cosine rule. You can use the trigonometric functions or ratios, tan A, sine A, cosine A, the ratios, which is Sukatwa, in the right angle triangle only. But in the oblique triangle like this one, you have to use sine rule or cosine rule, and we are going to revise it later, inshallah. The same ideas to find the angles and the figures. Okay. These are the triangles. And we have some applications on this one. Before this application, I'll give you some examples on the properties of angles in each quadrant, like that we studied yesterday, without using calculator, without using the calculator, find the value of number 1, sec 150 plus 3 tan 120 minus 2 sine 210 plus cosine 300. Okay, let me solve it. First, sec 150. 150. Sec 150 in which quadrant? 150 itself, in which quadrant? Second quadrant. Second quadrant. And the sec has the properties as the cosine, because cosine and sec are reciprocals. يبقى ده تبقى sec in second quadrant. You write 180 minus which angle? 30. Why? To get the same angle. So sec 180 minus 30 in the second quadrant will be negative sec 30, يعني equals negative 1 over cosine 30, the same. And 30 has a property that root 3 over 2 and half, with 60, 1 over 2 and root 3 over 2, 45, 1 over root 2 and 1 over root 2. Okay? A negative 1 over cosine 30. Cosine 30 is, this is sine, x is sine, and y is cosine. Okay? So it will be negative 1 over cosine 30, which is 2 over root 3. The reciprocal of this one. What about tan 120? Who can solve it with me? Tan 120, in which quadrant?
Second.
Second quadrant. So it will be tan 180 minus 60. It will, in the second quadrant, the tan is negative, because only sine and the reciprocal are positive. So it will be negative tan 60 and go to 60. Tan means y over x, which is root 3, and you have the negative sign. So the second one. The third one, sine 210. Tell me in which quadrant? 210 in which quadrant?
Third.
Third quadrant. So it will be sine 180 plus 30 to get the same angle. And the sign in the third quadrant is positive or negative?
Negative.
Negative. So it will be negative sine 30. From the order pair of 30, you can find the sign, which is x. It will be negative half. It's okay? We have one angle more, which is cosine 300. 300 in which quadrant?
Fourth.
Fourth quadrant. So it will be cosine, the property of force is 360 minus which angle to find third? It's 300 minus minus 60. 300 minus 60 equals 300. 360 minus 60 equals 300. So the cosine in the fourth quadrant is the same. Aztec, as I told you, Aztec means the A means all. In the first quadrant are positive. Okay? In the second quadrant is sine. So sine is positive. Tan is positive in the third. And it's reciprocal, of course. Yeah. Cosine and its reciprocal is positive. So cosine in the fourth quadrant will be positive. So it will be cosine 60 equals half. Or 60, the cosine is y, is x, which is half. And you can find this 1, 2, 3, find results to find the result of the whole expression. It will be 650 means negative 2 over root 3. Okay? وبعدين plus 3 tan 120 is negative root 3 minus 2 sine 210, which is negative root 3. وبعدين cosine 300, which is 1 over 2. It's okay? I'll give you an example like this one, and I'll wait 2 minutes to solve. Okay يا جماعة. Oh, we have a mistake, I think. This is co-tan or tan. This cosine and this tan, it's okay. No, it's okay. No mistake. Co-tan is number 2. Co-tan 135 minus 4 sec 225 plus 3 cosine 150 plus 2 sine 240. Okay, I'll check this after 2 minutes and I'm going to check the attendance. Cotan 135. Okay, in which quadrant?
Second.
Second quadrant. So cotan in second quadrant is negative. It will be cotan 180 minus 45, which is negative cotan 45, which is negative 1. 20, 30, 60, 45. Root كده بس للتعب ده مش رضيع. شوف ايوه اهي كويس. سوري نيجاتيف 1. اوكي 30 is root 3 تاني root 3 over 2 and half, and this is half and root 3 over 2, and this is 1 over root 2 and 1 over root 2. Okay, sec 225, which quadrant? Which quadrant? 225.
Third.
Third quadrant will be sec 180 plus 45, which is negative 45. Sec is the reciprocal of cosine. It will be negative the reciprocal of cosine, which is the root 2, negative root 2. Okay. The third one is cosine 150 is in which quadrant?
Second.
Second. The cosine in second quadrant is positive or negative?
Negative.
Negative. So it will be negative cosine 180 minus 30 to get the same angle, which is negative cosine 30. And cosine 30 is root 3 over 2, and you have negative. So it will be negative root 3 over 2. What about the last one? Sine 240. واحد بس اللي بيجاوب، واحد بس وانا قاعد اتفرج على نفسي. Sine 240 in which quadrant؟ الباقي يرد. Sine 240 in which quadrant؟
Third.
اللي خرج من الحصة دلوقتي هكتبه غياب. Third quadrant. So it will be sine 180 plus 60 equals sine in the third quadrant is negative. It will be negative sine 60, which is negative root 3 over 2. Okay, so we have 4 values and we can find this expression. It will be cotan, which is negative 1, minus 4 times negative root 2 plus 3 times negative root 3 over 3 over 2 plus 2 times negative root 3 over 2. And you can use the calculator in the last step. Okay. The third one will be cotan 360, no, cotan 390 minus 2 tan 315 plus cosec 300 minus 2 sec 150. Number 4, sine 420 plus cosine negative 120 plus tan 215 225. Okay. Number 5, sec negative 30 degrees plus 2 sine negative 60 minus cotan 150 degrees. It's okay. Solve number 3 and 4, and number 5 will be homework.